The familiar blue and purple glow of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert filled the studio, but tonight something felt different. The audience, still buzzing from Colbert's razor-sharp monologue, sensed a shift as the host leaned back in his chair, his trademark smirk giving way to a rare, thoughtful pause. "Tonight's show is going to be a little different," Colbert began, adjusting his glasses. "Before I bring out our guest, I want to talk about something incredible that happened in Washington this week. Something that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention." The screen behind him flickered to life, displaying a photo of Representative Jasmine Crockett. Her name had been making headlines, but not for the usual reasons that dominate late-night punchlines. Instead, it was her bold, relentless work on a major education reform initiative that had caught Colbert's eye. And soon the attention of the entire country. Colbert, known for his quick wit and biting satire, set aside the jokes for a moment. "You know, my job is to point out the absurdities in our political system," he said, his voice softening. "But tonight, I want to celebrate the incredible efforts of Representative Jasmine Crockett. Her dedication to the Educational Opportunity Act shows something that's rare in politics. Today, a genuine commitment to improving people's lives. Not just chasing political points." The audience, used to laughter, now listened in a hush. This wasn't a setup for a punchline. It was a genuine acknowledgement of public service in an age dominated by spectacle. Colbert's sincerity was unmistakable, and it set the tone for what would become one of the most talked-about segments in late-night television. To understand why this moment struck such a chord, you have to know the paths both Colbert and Crockett took to get here. Colbert, now 59, had evolved from his days as a satirical pundit on The Daily Show and The Colbert Report into one of late night's most respected voices. After years of playing a fictional conservative, The Late Show gave audiences a chance to meet the real Colbert, a man of deep thought, faith, and empathy. Those close to him often described his genuine curiosity about social issues. Guests frequently mentioned how he would continue discussing serious topics off camera, showing a level of insight that went far beyond his comedy. Over time, Colbert mastered the art of using humor to make complex issues understandable without oversimplifying them. And though his show carried a clear perspective, he wasn't afraid to praise integrity, even in people he disagreed with. That night, he was doing more than just highlighting a news story. He was using his platform to amplify a rare kind of leadership. Representative Jasmine Crockett's journey, meanwhile, could not have been more different. Before entering Congress, she spent years as an education attorney, fighting for families and underserved communities to secure equal access to quality schooling. Her shift into politics came when she realized that the problems she fought in court were systemic, requiring policy change, not just legal victories. Once elected, she quickly earned respect for her calm, data-driven approach. Rather than chasing headlines, she focused on crafting strong legislation grounded in evidence and collaboration. The Educational Opportunity Act that caught Colbert's attention was the product of months of detailed work and coalition building. The bill called for expanding early education, improving struggling schools, investing in teachers, and closing the digital divide, ensuring that a child's zip code would no longer decide their future. Crockett's style stood out because it prioritized impact over ideology. She built partnerships with educators, families, and even skeptics, emphasizing research and fairness rather than political theater. Colbert's unexpected recognition came at a time when most media focused on conflict rather than solutions. Education policy rarely earns headlines unless it sparks controversy. Crockett's serious, fact-based work wasn't flashy, but it was effective. What no one predicted was how Colbert's heartfelt segment would magnify her message nationwide, inspiring discussions far beyond Washington and putting education reform back in the national spotlight. That night, the Late Show audience expected laughs. Instead, they witnessed one of the most genuine moments of integrity in late-night television history. The production team was caught off guard when, during their afternoon meeting, Colbert insisted on adding a new segment to highlight Representative Jasmine Crockett's education initiative. "This is more important than another celebrity story," he told them firmly. "Our viewers deserve to hear about this." When the show aired that evening, the large screen behind Colbert displayed powerful clips of Crockett visiting schools, meeting teachers and parents in underserved areas, and working with colleagues from both parties to gain support for her education bill. "What's truly remarkable about Representative Crockett," Colbert began, "isn't just the content of her education reform, it's the way she's chosen to pursue it. At a time when most politicians chase viral sound bites or quick headlines, she's focused on the hard work of actually fixing problems." He outlined several key parts of her legislation, including expanded access to early childhood education in both rural and urban communities, better teacher development programs, improved broadband access for remote learning, and innovation grants for schools testing new methods to overcome persistent challenges. At first, the audience wasn't sure where Colbert was heading with this unusually serious segment, but as he spoke, their curiosity turned into respect. This wasn't another joke about politics. It was a genuine acknowledgement of real public service. "What's especially impressive," Colbert continued, "is how Representative Crockett built support for this bill. She didn't start with partisan talking points. She began by identifying real problems, educational disparities, and their lasting impact, and then brought together teachers, parents, administrators, and experts from across the spectrum to find out what's actually working." The screen then showed a clip of Crockett speaking at a local forum. "Every child deserves the chance to reach their full potential," she said. "That's not a Democratic or Republican issue. It's an American principle that dates back to our nation's beginnings." The moment struck a chord because it contrasted sharply with the usual political coverage that focuses on conflict rather than cooperation. Colbert smiled. "Now, I know what you're thinking. Stephen, where are the jokes about Congress?" "Don't worry, they're coming. But once in a while, we need to recognize when our public servants are truly serving the public." The crowd erupted into genuine applause. Not the stage kind, but a heartfelt response to something real. Then Colbert added a personal note that deepened the moment. "As the son of educators and the father of children who've benefited from dedicated teachers, I know how life-changing quality education can be. Representative Crockett's work matters not because of her party, but because it fulfills a core promise we owe every generation: the chance to build a better future." The audience's applause was genuine, a rare moment of unity in a space usually reserved for satire and spectacle. What followed was unexpected. A series of testimonials from teachers, parents, and students directly impacted by Crockett's proposed legislation played on the big screen. A rural teacher explained how broadband expansion would let her students access advanced online courses for the first time. A parent from an urban area shared how early education programs would finally give working families access to resources once reserved for wealthier communities. A high school student talked about how career pathways could open doors his parents never had. These real stories transformed the segment from a simple discussion into something deeply human. Viewers began seeing education not as politics but as a shared national investment in opportunity. Colbert had turned what could have been a short mention into a moving spotlight on how thoughtful policy can improve lives. "Representative Crockett isn't seeking fame," Colbert noted as the video ended. "She's not the loudest in Congress or the most quoted on TV, but her careful, cooperative work deserves recognition because it shows what leadership should look like." He then played a clip of Crockett calmly addressing concerns in a committee hearing, acknowledging valid questions, responding with evidence, and building solutions instead of arguments. "See what's happening here," Colbert said. "She's not attacking anyone. She's engaging honestly, focusing on facts, and working toward progress." By the end of the segment, it was clear that Colbert wasn't just hosting a talk show. He was using his platform to highlight the kind of public service that actually improves lives. As the music played and the cameras faded, Colbert looked straight into the lens and left his audience with a thought that would soon go viral. Sometimes real leadership isn't about the spotlight. It's about doing the work that matters. We often talk about everything that's broken in our political system, and there's no shortage of things to criticize. But tonight, I want to pause and recognize Representative Jasmine Crockett's work because it reminds us of something truly important. Beyond all the noise and division, there are still public servants who quietly dedicate themselves to solving real problems for American families. The next morning, Representative Crockett woke up to a flood of messages on her phone. Colleagues, staff members, constituents, and even her family were reaching out about her appearance on The Late Show, even though she hadn't actually been there. "I was completely surprised," she later recalled with a laugh. "I was reviewing committee notes at home when my mom called asking when I'd been on Colbert. I didn't even know what she meant until I checked my phone and saw clips of the segment going viral everywhere." To her astonishment, Colbert's spotlight on her education initiative had gone far beyond the show's usual entertainment audience. Viewers across platforms were sharing it not as political commentary, but as a refreshing moment of attention to real policy work. Parent groups, teacher associations, and education nonprofits began reposting the video, praising it for highlighting an issue that rarely received thoughtful primetime coverage. "In over a decade of working in education reform, I've never seen a late-night show devote this kind of depth to education policy," said the director of a national education organization. Colbert didn't just mention the bill, he explained why it matters. The attention quickly spread beyond social media. Local TV stations across the country began featuring stories about Crockett's legislation, interviewing teachers, parents, and students about the issues it addressed. What had once been a policy discussion inside Washington suddenly became a national conversation about educational opportunity and equity in America later that afternoon. Colbert's producers called Crockett's office, inviting her to appear on the show in person to discuss her work. At first she hesitated. Late-night television wasn't exactly her usual platform. But after talking with education leaders and community partners who had helped shape the bill, she agreed. They all felt this was a once-in-a-generation chance to bring genuine attention to education policy. When Crockett finally appeared on The Late Show the following week, the tone of the interview was strikingly different from a typical talk show exchange. Instead of short, humorous back-and-forths, Colbert engaged her in a thoughtful conversation about educational inequities and practical reform. While keeping his signature wit, he gave her space to share real insights and data behind her work. "What inspired you to focus so deeply on education when Congress is flooded with so many competing priorities?" Colbert asked. Crockett smiled, then spoke with quiet conviction. "I believe education is where all possibility begins. Before entering Congress, I worked as an attorney helping families navigate education barriers. I saw firsthand how a child's access or lack of access to learning can shape their entire future. A child who can't read proficiently by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. Those outcomes ripple through entire communities. But I've also seen incredible schools that succeed against the odds. Teachers doing miracles with limited resources and parents sacrificing everything to help their children learn. This legislation builds on those real successes, not on ideology. What viewers witnessed wasn't a politician delivering rehearsed lines. It was a public servant genuinely explaining how evidence-based policy could change lives. Colbert, instead of making jokes, listened and asked deeper questions to help the audience understand the challenges and possibilities within America's education system. "You've managed to gain bipartisan support," Colbert noted. "How do you find common ground on an issue that often becomes politically divisive?" Crockett answered thoughtfully. "I start by listening. When a colleague raises concerns, I assume they're coming from a real place, even if I disagree. That opens the door to actual problem solving instead of political posturing," she said. Then, with a light smile, she added, "It also helps to come prepared with solid data. It's hard for anyone to hold on to ideology when the facts about what's happening in classrooms are right in front of them." Her calm, intelligent tone and sincere dedication left a lasting impression not only on Colbert's audience, but on millions watching online. What started as a single moment of late night recognition had evolved into a national reminder that real leadership isn't about noise. It's about listening, learning, and working toward results that improve people's lives.